Hi, welcome to Akamai TV. My name's Will Law. So there's a myth somewhat, or an expectation in Silicon Valley that startups have to be minted somewhere between San Francisco and San Jose. But in fact, my guest today comes from a mountain valley in Austria. So I want to welcome Stefan Lederer, CEO of Bitmoving.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining me. So yes, Klagenfurt is far from here, and I probably first knew you 6 years ago. Two grad students and a professor getting into the Dash world. And I want to give you credit because you walked to the Akamai booth and you realized it's an MPEG Dash manifest that we actually have on the walls of our booth. Nobody else has even realized that.
Great marketing.
So how did you get from Klagenfurt to the main stage essentially here at NAB? What's been the journey over the last few years?
Yeah, as you said, we started in research and standardization in our small PhD student office in the University of Klagenfurt in Austria. And we saw that there is a new thing happening in the media space called MPEG Dash. And we were keen to contribute to write software around it, open source tools. We wrote client-side libraries, we wrote encoding tools, we published data sets. And suddenly people got notice about us, we got notice that people use our stuff, and then we said, okay, let's build a company around that. And we started to build commercial software, we started to pitch it to companies, to our friends, to partners, and suddenly we got our first customers, and then it came from there where we said, okay, hey, that's something that's really taking off. Investors took notice about that. We got our first customers also in the US. We stumbled upon startup programs like Y Combinator, and that was basically where a technology project, small company from the mountains in Austria realized what it means to build a really big business, a successful startup. So Y Combinator and the Bay Area finally got us. So we made the transition out of Austria to the Silicon Valley and learned what it means to build a product, to build a go-to-market strategy. And that's something that you really learn in the Bay Area. That's something where you take amazing technology and build a product around that's scalable, a business model that's scalable, a marketing and the sales organization that's scalable. And during Y Combinator we learned those things, and since then, since 2015, it really took off. It's this initial phase of research and productization went into a scalability phase of really building up a team from maybe 12 people that we have been in 2015 when we did that to 130 people today.
Wow. That's fantastic. So you made an early bet on containerization of your software. Everyone at that time was deploying whole machine instances and having to deploy them. And I think that bet in hindsight has paid off now. But talk a bit more about how containerization helped you scale, and where do you think it's going? Is that the be-all and the end-all, or do you see a mutation or a shift going forward as to what the direction might be? Is it like Lambda software at the edge? Do we get away from even containers themselves?
Yes, that's super interesting. Yeah. So we had the advantage to start from scratch with our software. Yeah. So when we started our software, the cloud really took off, and distributed infrastructure took off, microservice architectures really took off. So that was the basis where we also built our software upon. And containerization is a natural part of like a microservice architecture, of a scalable software architecture. So we built the software like this, and we built it for our own purpose, and realized, hey, it's not just for us running encoding software, analytics software. It's also you can flexibly deploy the software also to our customers. So containerization and the principles around that, microservices, also involve continuous deployment and continuous integration. So we are releasing software on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis, and that's very different to a lot of existing vendors in the industry. So that really moved us forward in terms of innovation and flexibility. And then also the deployment paradox with like multi-cloud, with Kubernetes, enabled us to deploy our software not just in our infrastructure, also in the infrastructure of our customers, in the AWS or Google accounts of our customers, as well as in the data centers of our customers. So that's the first step that we see in terms of deployment flexibility. The next step is really to leverage the whole infrastructure that's out there, not just the cloud accounts or the data centers, or also the edge infrastructure, for example. It's not just cloud computing, it's people call it edge computing or fog computing or whatever you want to name it, but it's just like use the computational resources where they are available. One customer of us wants us on the edge in terms of encoding. That's super interesting. The same thing you can do for manifest generation, the same thing you can do for analytics. And yeah, that's totally the next generation of media infrastructure where we are working on right now.
So you are known for your engineering excellence, I would say. What's your secret for hiring the smart engineers? Like, how do you get them and not Google gets them? How do you sell Bitmoving?
That's a good question. I think we try to stay to our DNA. We are engineers, we are researchers. We like to build cool products, cool technologies, and also things that are innovative on the market. As soon as we are not like leading in terms of technology, like trying out really the things that nobody else tried out before, that's really what defines us. Like going ahead and trying out, oh, there's a new protocol, there's a new format. Hey, there's low latency becoming important. Hey, there is, for example, multipath TCP coming out. There's a HTTP 2.3 spec coming out. Yeah. We want to be the first ones to play around with those things because that's what we like. Yeah. And I think that's also attractive to the people that work for us. So we really foster innovation culture and engineering culture. We attract the best people and want to have the best people in the team. And when you're in such a team, you're getting like really excited because all the people you work with are super good. And I think that's part of like a culture of engineering excellence. And I think that's what people really appreciate. And then when you interview people, engineers, they can feel this passion. Yeah. They can see, okay, what are we doing on the engineering side, how we talk about that in our blogs, in our newsletter, in our products and documentation. It's really designed from engineers for engineers, which are using our products in the end. And I think that's the secret sauce for us to attract people for us amongst all those opportunities that are out there on the job market, and that worked so far pretty well for us.
So I know your PhDs in Berlin are working on AV1 now, I believe. So you you took an early stance on AV1. You did the first live AV1 stream, even though it took 48 machines in the cloud, but it was the first live AV1. There's the Sysvol pool arrived. What's your take on that? Do you think it's going to slow down AV1? Does it lower in any way your expectations of the rollout of the format?
It was kind of to be expected. So I think as soon as the technology is exciting and innovative and taking off, things like this pool are a natural thing to happen. And it was expected by the AO Media and by the whole standardization around it. So it's not a big roadblock, but it's definitely going to increase the uncertainty and doubts around the technology, as it did for HEVC, for example. So it's definitely not necessarily increasing the speed of adoption, or rather the opposite. But I think that's simply the nature of our industry, unfortunately, that we have to navigate those things. It's part of the game at this point. Yeah. Let's try to build the best possible technology and move it to the market. We still have a lot of technology road bumps when it comes to AV1, hardware support, DRM support, for example. But We are going to launch the first production services in the next couple of months, so that's super exciting. The early bet really paid off. Again, a reflection of our engineering DNA. There's something new, we want to try it out. And we are going to do the same bets for VVC, for example, and for many other technologies that are entering the market, and try to figure out the other ecosystem limitations later.
So do you think for 2020 at Bitmoving booth we'll see hardware-assisted AV1 live 1080p encoding?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also a VVC live stream.
Awesome. Well, I'll hold you to that. I want to thank you for your time today. I know you're busy. You threw a fantastic party Monday night.
Thank you for coming.
I think you've reached the upper echelons of the media industry, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much as well, and looking forward to the innovation next year at the booth.
We'll do that. We'll be back with more live Acavi TV later. Thank you and bye-bye.